He was a billionaire who rejected every maid for his aging mother until one woman walked in. What she did next left him completely speechless. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Ethan Carter was a man the world both admired and feared. At 35, he stood tall, broad-shouldered, and strikingly handsome, with short dark hair and eyes that carried both intelligence and authority. To strangers, he was the perfect picture of success, a self-made billionaire whose name was always printed across the front pages of business magazines. His companies stretched across cities, his luxury cars filled garages like soldiers lined in order, and his private jets could take him anywhere he wished within hours. Yet behind the glitter of his empire, Ethan carried a quiet loneliness. He lived in a penthouse on the top floor of his tallest tower in Savannah, where the view of the glowing city lights often reminded him of how high he had climbed and how far he stood from everyone else. But there was one person who could break his walls, his mother, Margaret Carter. She was a gentle soul in her late 70s, soft-spoken and graceful, though age had slowly stolen her strength. After suffering a stroke, she needed constant attention at her home. Ethan loved her more than anyone else in the world, and he promised himself she would never lack care or comfort. He hired the best doctors, the most expensive nurses, and the most recommended maids. But no matter how impressive their resumes were, something was always wrong. One nurse barely lasted a week before complaining the old woman was too demanding. Another maid broke down after 2 days, whispering that she couldn't handle the late nights. A third treated Margaret with cold hands and no patience, as though caring for her was a burden rather than an honor. Each time, Ethan's anger rose like fire. He would come into the house unannounced and find his mother unattended, her food left cold, her blanket not tucked properly, her medicine delayed. He fired one after another, his voice cold and sharp. "Get out. You don't deserve this job." Despite all his money, he could not find someone to treat his mother with real love. And each time another maid left, Ethan watched the sadness deepen in his mother's eyes. One night, standing alone by the tall glass window of his penthouse, Ethan let out a weary sigh. The city below sparkled with life, but to him, the lights felt empty. He pressed a hand to the glass and whispered, "Maybe no one will ever care for her the way I do. Maybe no one is worthy." The billionaire who was untouchable in boardrooms, who defeated rivals with ease, now found himself powerless in the face of his mother's fragile health. He could buy everything, but not love, not loyalty, not the tenderness his mother needed. What Ethan didn't know was that life was already writing a new chapter for him. Someone unexpected was about to walk through his mother's door, someone who would change everything he believed about money, love, and family. The next morning, the bell rang at Margaret Carter's front door. It was soft and polite, the kind of ring that waited its turn. When the housekeeper opened, a young woman stood there with a small canvas bag and a quiet smile. "My name's Naomi Parker," she said. "I'm here from the agency. I was told Mrs. Carter needs day care and gentle hands." She stepped inside without noise, as if the house were a sick child she didn't want to wake. Naomi was modestly dressed in a neat gray dress and clean white sneakers. Her hair was tied back so nothing would touch the patient's face. She put her bag on the console table and washed her hands before she even asked where the bedroom was. Margaret was awake, propped on pillows, a knit shawl around her shoulders. Naomi paused at the doorway for one breath, as if to gather kindness, then walked in with a warm, "Good morning, ma'am." She didn't rush. She didn't speak too loudly. She sat at the bedside and introduced herself again, this time to Margaret alone. "I'm Naomi. I'll listen to you. I'll move at your pace. We will do this together." She checked the room first. The window was letting in a thin beam of sun. The side table was cluttered. Naomi straightened it in seconds. Water within reach, call bell clipped to the sheet, tissues folded, lotion opened. She set a small notebook down. "This is our log," she explained. What you eat, how you sleep, your medicine times, and how you feel after our exercises. If something hurts, we write it. If something helps, we write that too. She washed Margaret's face with a warm cloth, patting instead of wiping. She asked if the pillow was too high. She asked which side ached more in the night. She listened. When it was time for morning pills, she didn't just hand them over. She named each one in simple words and waited for a nod. Then she helped Margaret sit a little straighter and whispered, "Breathe with me, 1, 2, 3. The old woman's shoulders relaxed. Naomi went to the kitchen and opened drawers until she found a clean pot. Soon, a soft smell filled the house. Light chicken broth with carrots, a pinch of ginger, and a little rice to give it body. She set the flame low and returned to help with gentle stretches. Each movement was slow and safe. Naomi counted softly, the way a mother counts while rocking a child. "Tell me a song you loved when you were young," Naomi asked. "Moon River," Margaret said, embarrassed to be so sentimental. Naomi smiled. "Then we'll borrow the river today." She hummed while she adjusted the blanket and rubbed a small circle into the tight muscle above Margaret's knee. The old woman sighed, not a painful sound, a relieved one. Ethan arrived without warning, as he often did. He used his own key and stepped inside quietly. He had planned to stand in the hallway and listen for problems, the clang of a dropped spoon, a careless voice, a rough tug on a blanket. He heard none of that. He heard humming. He moved to the living room doorway and froze. Naomi sat at the edge of the bed, not touching her phone, not glancing at the clock, only watching Margaret's face. When the old woman coughed, Naomi held the water. When she shivered, Naomi lifted the shawl. When her hand searched for something to hold, Naomi gave her own hand to keep. "Is the light too bright?" Naomi asked. "A little," Margaret whispered. Naomi rose and turned the blinds just so. The room shifted into a calm, soft shade. She opened a window for one breath of fresh air and closed it again before the chill could creep in. Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. He didn't step forward yet. He studied the small things, the way Naomi tucked the sheet under the mattress with care, the way she placed the spoon against Margaret's lip and waited for a tiny nod, the way she warmed her hands before the next stretch. When Naomi finally noticed him, she did not jump or fumble. She stood, straightened her dress, and greeted him with a nod.
"Good morning," she said.
"You must be Mr. Carter. I'm Naomi." Ethan's tone came out crisper than he meant. "How long have you been here?" "Since 6:30, she answered. Mornings are stiff for her. It helps to begin before the pain gets loud. He glanced at the bedside table. The pills were gone, the times were written in the neat log. The water was half full, not forgotten. The food on the tray had been tasted, not left to cool. "My mother, how is she?" he asked, voice lower now. Naomi did not speak in pretty words. Tired, but easier in the shoulders after stretches. Appetite small, but better with warm broth. Right hip blocks when she turns to the window. We will work around that today. Ethan took a step closer to the bed. Margaret's eyes were clearer than they had been in days. "She listens," Margaret whispered. "She doesn't rush me." Naomi smiled, but did not take the praise for herself. "Your mother is trying. I'm only helping her try safely." Ethan tested her without meaning to. "Can you transfer her to the chair by noon?" Naomi looked at the clock and then at Margaret's legs. "Yes, but only for 20 minutes today, with 2 pillows under the right hip. If she bears too much, she will pay for it tonight." He nodded. It was the answer of someone who thought beyond the hour in front of her. Naomi went to the kitchen and returned with the broth. She blew gently on the spoon and waited, patient as a cloud. Between bites, she talked about simple things. How the morning smelled like rain, how the hibiscus outside the window had one pink flower trying to be brave. When Margaret tired, Naomi set the tray aside and wiped her lips with a soft cloth. Then she turned to Ethan. "I would like to adjust the room," she said. "Fresh sheets at noon, a lower lamp for evenings, and a radio with slow music. May I also move that rug? It curls and could trip her." Ethan blinked. Most helpers waited for orders. This one saw needs before he spoke them. Do what you think is best, he said. Naomi wrote one more line in the log and tucked the pen into the spine. I'll stay until 3 today. If the night caregiver is late, I will not leave your mother alone. There was no pride in the promise. It was a plain sentence, strong and clean. When noon came, Naomi guided Margaret from the bed to the chair. She moved like a dancer. One hand at the shoulder blade, one arm steady at the waist, her knees set so Margaret could lean safely. She counted the steps. They reached the chair, without a gasp. Ethan stood close, ready to catch. He didn't need to. Too bright? Naomi asked again. She turned the lamp down one notch, then placed a small lavender sachet near the cushion for comfort. We will sit 20 minutes. If the hip complains, we return sooner. Margaret's eyes shone with quiet gratitude. You have warm hands, she said. Naomi's answer was simple. I warm them for people who need them. Ethan felt heat rise behind his eyes and looked away, pretending to study the blinds. He had hired experts with perfect resumes. He had interviewed people who spoke like textbooks. Yet no one had brought this level of care, this calm, this dignity. As the 20 minutes ended, Naomi guided Margaret back to bed, tucked the sheet, and smoothed the crease near her ankle so nothing would scratch. When the old woman drifted into a soft sleep, Naomi cleaned the room, washed the bowl, and wrote one last note in the log. Sat upright 22 minutes. No sharp pain. Mild ache in right hip. Warm compress applied. Mood peaceful. Only then did Ethan speak again. How much experience do you have? Naomi met his eyes, steady but gentle. Enough to know that people are more than schedules, she said. My training is basic, but my attention is full. I will learn your mother's rhythms and respect them. He studied her a long second. Will you come back tomorrow? Yes, she said. If your mother wants me. From the bed, Margaret answered without opening her eyes. I do. Naomi gathered her small bag, but did not rush to the door. She checked the water one more time. She placed the call bell in Margaret's hand so she would feel it, not just see it. Then she looked at Ethan, not as a billionaire, but as a son. I will be here at 6:30, she said. We will make the morning quiet again. After she left, the house held a strange new silence. It was not the cold, empty silence of neglect. It was the soft, safe silence that follows good care. Ethan stood by the window and let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. For the first time in months, he was not afraid to leave the house. For the first time in years, he wondered if money could be a tool for love, not a wall around it. He looked at the neat little log on the table and traced the ink with his finger. Something in his guarded heart shifted, small but real. He didn't know it yet, but the door that opened for Naomi had opened inside him too. Naomi returned the next morning at 6:30 sharp, just as she had promised. She walked into the house with the same calm smile, carrying her small canvas bag, as though she had been part of the Carter household all her life. Ethan had left early for a meeting, but he had instructed the driver to watch if she would truly show up again.
She did.
By the time Ethan came back that afternoon, he noticed a change. The house, which had often felt cold and stiff, carried a new warmth. The curtains were open just enough to let in daylight without hurting his mother's eyes. A vase of fresh flowers stood on the table. Wildflowers Naomi had picked from the garden. Soft music hummed from a radio in the corner. But what truly stopped him was his mother's laughter. Margaret Carter, who had spent weeks sinking into silence, was now laughing gently as Naomi told her a story about burning her first pot of rice when she was younger. Naomi's words were simple, yet her voice was full of life. And when Margaret laughed, it wasn't forced. It was the kind of laugh that shook loose the dust of sadness. Ethan leaned against the wall, unseen for a moment, and simply listened. He couldn't remember the last time he had heard that sound from his mother. Over the next days, Ethan began visiting more often, though he told himself it was only to check on the progress. He would arrive at odd hours, expecting to find Naomi distracted or careless, but each time he discovered the same thing: she was fully present. He saw her kneeling beside his mother, helping her stretch her stiff fingers with warm oil. He saw her reading aloud from an old novel, pausing whenever Margaret grew tired. He saw her guiding his mother into the garden, holding her with steady arms while pointing at the blooming roses. Naomi had no degree in medicine, yet she carried a wisdom that reached deeper. She did not just care for the body, she cared for the spirit. One afternoon, Ethan sat in the living room while Naomi prepared tea in the kitchen. He heard his mother's voice drift softly through the open door. "She listens, Ethan," Margaret said, smiling faintly. "She doesn't rush me. For the first time in months, I feel like myself again." Ethan looked at his mother's face and saw peace where there had only been weariness. It was then that he realized this young woman was doing something money had failed to buy. She was giving his mother dignity. That evening, when Naomi returned from the kitchen with a tea tray, Ethan studied her closely. She moved with quiet confidence, not trying to impress, not seeking attention. When she set the tea before his mother, she blew on the cup gently before handing it over. Ethan's throat tightened. Something inside him stirred, something he had buried under years of business deals and cold ambition. He told himself it was admiration for her work, nothing more. Yet deep down, he knew it was more than that. As days turned into weeks, Naomi's presence in the Carter home became like sunlight slipping through curtains, soft, constant, and quietly powerful. Ethan found himself drawn there more often, even canceling meetings just to check on his mother. But deep down, he knew it wasn't only his mother that kept pulling him back, it was Naomi. He had never seen anyone work the way she did. Every detail mattered to her. She noticed when Margaret's pillow was too high, when her soup needed less salt, or when her legs needed an extra blanket for warmth. Naomi's care was not just duty, it was devotion. One rainy evening, Ethan came home later than usual. The storm outside beat against the windows, thunder rolling over the city. Expecting to find his mother asleep, he walked quietly through the hall, but then stopped. In the dim light of the living room, Naomi sat by his mother's side, reading aloud from a small Bible in her gentle voice. His mother's hand rested in hers, and though her eyes were closed, her breathing was calm, almost childlike. Naomi's lips moved slowly over each word, not rushing, as if every syllable carried comfort. When she noticed Ethan standing there, she closed the book softly and whispered, "She was restless tonight. The storm makes her anxious. I thought reading might help." Ethan stepped closer, his shoes clicking against the polished floor. His voice was low, almost cautious. "You do all this, but why? Why not just do the job and leave? You could earn more money working in other wealthy homes. Yet you choose this." Naomi's eyes met his, steady and unflinching. "Because care without love is just labor. I lost my own mother early, Mr. Carter. She used to tell me that the real measure of a person is how they treat those who can no longer give anything back. Caring for your mother, it reminds me of her. It gives me purpose." The words struck Ethan like lightning. He had heard thousands of speeches from business leaders, but never had a sentence shaken him so deeply. He turned his face away, trying to steady himself, but Naomi's sincerity had already pierced his guarded heart. That night, after his mother fell asleep, Ethan lingered in the kitchen where Naomi washed the dishes. He watched her hands move gracefully, her hair tied back, her face calm even in silence. The clinking of dishes and the soft rain outside made the air feel strangely intimate. "You are different," he finally said. Naomi paused, wiped her hands on a cloth, and looked at him with curious eyes. "Different how?" "Every maid before you came for money," Ethan said quietly. "You came with something else. And I can't explain why, but it unsettles me. I don't know how to place you in my world." Naomi gave a small smile, not proud, not shy, just honest. "Maybe you don't need to place me anywhere. Maybe I'm only meant to be here for your mother." But Ethan knew it wasn't true. He felt it in the way his chest tightened when she spoke, in the way his eyes followed her even when he told himself not to. She had already carved a place in his world, one he couldn't ignore. Rumors soon began to swirl outside. Some of Ethan's business associates whispered in disbelief. A billionaire spending his evenings with a maid? Impossible. Others sneered, suggesting she must be playing a clever game. But every time Ethan looked at Naomi, Every time he saw her wipe his mother's tears, every time he heard her laugh gently at his mother's jokes, he knew the rumors were nothing compared to the truth. And the truth was simple. Ethan Carter, the untouchable billionaire, was falling for the one woman he never expected. But the question that kept him awake at night was, would Naomi ever feel the same? One golden afternoon, Margaret Carter sat by the window in her armchair, her blanket tucked around her legs. Naomi was beside her, knitting slowly while humming a gentle tune. Ethan stood by the door, watching the scene unfold like a painting. His mother caught his gaze and smiled knowingly. "Ethan," she said softly, "don't just stand there. Sit with us." He obeyed, lowering himself into the seat opposite them. Naomi looked up at him, her eyes calm, her smile modest, as though she had no idea how much space she already occupied in his heart. For a long moment, silence wrapped around the three of them, broken only by the ticking clock and the soft hum of Naomi's tune. Then Margaret spoke again, her voice faint but certain. "Son, I've lived long enough to know the difference between care given out of duty and care given out of love. This young woman has given me both. I feel alive again, not because of medicine, but because of her heart." Ethan's throat tightened. He reached out and held his mother's frail hand. "I see it too, Mother. I've never seen you so peaceful." Margaret's eyes twinkled as she turned to Naomi. "Child, do you know what you've done? You've softened the heart of a man the whole city calls unshakable." Naomi blushed, lowering her gaze. "I only did what felt right. Your son gave me work, but you gave me purpose." Ethan couldn't hold back any longer. He rose slowly and walked toward Naomi. She stood too, unsure, her hands still clutching the piece of knitting. His eyes locked on hers, steady and unflinching. "Naomi," he began, his voice low but full of conviction, "I spent years building walls around myself. Money, power, success. I thought they were enough. But you walked into this house and cared for my mother in ways no one else ever could. And in doing that, you touched something in me I thought no longer existed." Naomi's lips parted, but no words came. Tears shimmered in her eyes, uncertain yet sincere. Ethan stepped closer, his voice trembling with honesty. "I don't see you as a maid. I see you as the woman who gave my mother back her smile and gave me back my heart. Naomi, I want you to stay, not because of the work, but because of who you are. Stay with us. Stay with me." Naomi's breath caught. For a moment, the world seemed to still. Then a single tear rolled down her cheek as she whispered, "Ethan, are you sure? I am just a simple woman." He gently cupped her face in his hand, wiping the tear with his thumb.
"No, Naomi.
You're not just anything. You are everything I never knew I needed." Behind them, Margaret clapped her frail hands together, her eyes wet with joy. "Finally," she whispered, "God has answered my prayers." Naomi let out a soft laugh through her tears, her heart overwhelmed.
Slowly, she nodded.
"Then yes, I will stay. Not as a maid, but as family." Ethan smiled, a smile so rare and genuine that it lit his face in a way no magazine cover ever had. He leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. In that moment, wealth, titles, and the outside world disappeared. What remained was pure love, gratitude, and the beginning of a new story. The billionaire, who once rejected every maid, had finally found the one woman who could never be replaced. And in the quiet of his mother's home, Ethan Carter realized the truth. The greatest treasure he would ever possess was not in his bank account, but in the heart of the woman who chose love over everything else. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find the story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.